lifestyle child of God. As you can see the background very clearly, where the subject matter today is Cory Booker. Now, I just want to say that I like Cory Booker a lot. You know what I mean? He's fairly balanced to me, and I like the things that he stands for. Some of the things, not everything. Um, but this is, the other day he did the longest running filibuster and in legislative history, right? The longest running filibuster. He went for 24 hours or something like that. Something he did something. I stand corrected if you correct me in the chat. But who cares? And then the thing is like they celebrate him, like people are congratulating him for doing this ongoing long speech. Some of it made, sense in the sense that he was speaking on things that mattered, but in reference to, our government. But like, this is why the Democrats lost. This is why the Democrats are not empowered. This is why nobody voted for the Democrats, because of babbling. Who cares that you did the longest running speech in the Senate? Why are we congratulating you for that? That should not be congratulated. He could have held a space on X and gotten possibly more viewers. He could have rallied more people towards his viewpoint. He could have done a lot of things with his voice, but instead he got on stage just to babble. And it didn't solve anything. It didn't solve anything. And this is why people didn't vote for Democrats, because the things that they're doing is not solving the problems that we're currently seeing in the United States. Just because you're babbling at legislation, doing a filibuster, basically meaning preventing legislation from happening, basically, that doesn't stop or change anything that's going on in these United States. And that's why nobody voted for the Democrats, because we're tired of babble. We're tired of nothing getting done. We're tired of you representing things that don't represent the entirety of the United States of America. Like I said before, I like Cory Booker. Great guy. I like some of his politics. But you just wasted mad time in legislation. Like, you could have held a space on X. You could have held a space on YouTube. You didn't have to waste our governmental time babbling. You know what I mean? Not getting anything done. No, that's why people didn't vote for you Democrats, because, and I'm not Democratic or Republican, I would be a whole different party outside of that. But that's why nobody voted for Democrats. That's why y'all lost, because y'all just babble and y'all fight for things that are irrelevant, right? There are there's so many things that we could be focusing on, advocating for, writing bills for, pursuing justice for, besides you babbling on stage. And then they congratulated him for it. People gave him a round of applause for this record-breaking babble. Who cares? Like, nobody cares. You know what I mean? And this is part of the reason why you're seeing the destruction of the United States right now, right? Now, like I said before, he could have come up with a better... Hold on, let me back up some. Mind you, while he's babbling on stage, his assistant, his aide, gets arrested for carrying a pistol around congressional grounds, right? And I don't care if you have a license for it, you're not supposed to have, unless you're, Capitol Police, you can't have a pistol. I don't care if you have a license. You can't have a pistol on congressional grounds. So his aide gets arrested for having a pistol on grounds, who is his, I guess, so-called security, right? Dog, you don't need security. Maybe you do outside of Congress. Oh God, here we go. These white supremacists. I swallow. Yo, let me block you. And then let me remove what you said, because that's just nonsense. Babble in the chat. But yo, get this babble out of here, dog. Like, yo, you could be doing way more, rallying people together to support the Democrats, right? But instead, you decide to babble on stage for hours. And see how this is how smart the Republicans are, because they move in silence, like they say, geez, move in silence. They move in silence. They conglomerate in silence. They make plans, whether they argue about it or not, they make plans about it, and then they push it forward, right? This is why they took over, they have the majority, right? This is why they have the majority, the Republicans, because of folks like this that think that it's okay to just babble, about, basically he was babbling about Trump. I don't care. Nobody cares. And it's not solving. Yes, I said that. Richard Andrew Crosby, thank you for replying in the chat. I did say that he was filibustering, but that doesn't matter. You're going to filibuster right today, and tomorrow the Republicans, they're going to be quiet and they're going to vote on something defeating the Democrats again. Like, it's not solving anything is the point of the fact of the matter, is that we're not solving anything by you babbling. They all do it, but it doesn't matter, Richard. Like, it's not did it solve anything? Richard, please leave a comment in the chat. What did it solve? What did it solve? Did it get people to rally behind the Democrats? No. Like, is it solving anything? Richard, thank you for commenting in the chat, by the way. Thank you so much. And thank you for being polite, by the way, Richard. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that you can do. It's a preventative tactic, right, to stall things, but it doesn't matter at this point. You could have used your influence in other ways. You could have babbled online for hours, and at least you would have conglomerated the minds of American people, right? You could have conglomerated the minds of American people to get behind the Democrats. Right now, nobody's behind the Democrats right now, okay? Nobody's behind them. Right. Thank you, Richard. I mean, I don't know if you're for what I'm saying or not. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. It doesn't solve anything. What does it solve? And yeah, it's a tactic. I get it. But right now, in the United States, we need tangible solutions, right? We need unity, right? We need to come together to solve the problems that we have, right? We are not solving problems by filibustering, right? And to Richard's point, I mentioned that earlier when I started the live, right? Now, does it make me upset? It doesn't really make me upset. I know I sound a little passionate about it. It doesn't make me upset. I'm just saying, like, you could have used your influence in greater ways than that, right? You could have actually, again, you could have did all that babbling on an X space, right? And actually conglomerated people to gain momentum for the Democrats, right? But no, this is the same thing that we seen at the Doge protests. A bunch of people conglomerating to basically bash Elon and Trump, right? But instead of conglomerating to use your voting power, to use your influence to change America, right? To combat the things that you don't like, you're just babbling. I'm babbling right now on the live. Is it helping? Maybe and maybe not. You know what I mean? Am I changing the people's minds? Possibly not. But possibly not. What I'm saying is that you could have used your influence better than that. Let me see what Richard said. Right. Richard, I said that earlier when I started the chat, which you said. Let me say what Richard Andrew Crosby said. Thank you for being respectful and for commenting, Richard. Richard says the Senate traditionally or of unlimited debate has allowed for the use of the filibuster to loosely define term for action designed to prolong debate or to prevent a vote on the bill. And I said that. That's what the filibuster is for. I said that earlier in the chat before you jumped in, Richard. But again, the Republicans are moving with strategy, which the Democrats should be taking note of. And the Republicans, they're like, okay, we're going to let him babble. We're going to let him babble. I don't care if he gets the Guinness World Record for babbling as long as he could, right, on the floor. I don't care. What did it solve, right? And if it's preventing legislation, okay, we're going to wait until you finish talking, right? We'll come back tomorrow or the next day or whenever we reconvene, and we're still going to outvote you, right? You didn't change or influence anything by this babble. And yet this is why nobody voted for the Democrats, because they're going in the wrong direction. They're going in the wrong direction. Okay, Richard, I'm glad that you jumped in the chat. It says, will a Democratic judge won an election in Wisconsin where Elon Musk and Trump threw 53 million behind and their candidate still lost? I'm not sure what your point was of that. Can you just put your point, Richard, in the chat? Like, what was the point of saying that? But again, this is why the Democrats lost the election, because they're going in the wrong direction when it comes to the American people. They're not getting towards the facts or the agenda that most Americans would like to see. And see, the Republicans, look at what they've done so far. They have answered tangible problems, right, through the use of executive order, mostly, to get across what they feel like most American people want, right? Well, let's start with one thing. Most American people, whether you were Democratic or Republican, they wanted these illegals, we'll just call them illegals, the immigrants, they wanted them out of America, right? Boom, done, right? Trump did so many things. I don't need to go into it. You already are abreast with the news. He did so many things. Yeah, but there again, Richard, even though you're preventing a vote, that doesn't mean that we're still not going to vote on it later, right? And like I said, we're going to let you talk and you're going to prevent a vote today. But when we reconvene, we're going to vote for whatever we thought to vote for in reference to whatever bill, right? It's too much division going on instead of bringing the parties together. Now, if he would have filibustered advocating towards Republicans, like, look, such and such, we need to come together. We need to find a medium. Trump this, a little bit less Trump, right? Let's focus more on how we can come together and get the parties to vote on bills that both parties agree on, which are supposed to support the American people. How is you preventing a bill to be voted on supporting the American people, in which case the strategy is, okay, let him do whatever. When we reconvene, we're going to outvote every last one of you that are against this bill, right? And I don't know what bill it was. I didn't go into depth about that. It's the fact of the matter is that people were celebrating him babbling, wasting time, right? The filibuster is basically to waste time. Okay, you wasted our time today. We'll reconvene. We're going to go have lunch. We're going to go have dinner. We'll give it a couple of days. We'll reconvene and we'll re-vote on, we'll vote on what we were going to vote on anyways, right? It doesn't solve anything. And the American people are not getting anything out of your babble. Now, again, I like Corey. You know what I mean? I'm in support of Corey for most things. You know, Corey has and I put in the description, you know, some of the things that Corey is in favor for, right? That he supports, that he backs, right? But this is not solving anything. Hey, listen. They're still moving though. They're still moving forward, and I'm not in support of a lot of those executive orders. For example, the executive order in reference to scalping, right? We seen Kid Rock, Trump calls him Bob, right? We seen Bob, right? With Trump signing an executive order about scalping tickets so that more people can participate in concerts. But the fact of the matter is, the more tariffs that we have, the more expensive things become. I don't care if you get rid of the scalping, people still don't have money to attend these concerts, right? They still don't have enough money to do the fun things that they like to do. Right now, the American people only have money to support themselves in the important things, right? Food, paying bills, paying, you know, things of that nature, you know, paying your mortgage, right? The American people only have money to support things that are important, right? When it comes to buying tickets to go see Bob, Kid Rock, I mean, we'll stream it. We're going to stream it. Like, we don't need to attend your concert. We don't have the money for it, bro. You know, we don't have the money for your merchandising. They were talking about making tickets, you know, getting rid of the scalpers, right? So that the tickets can be less in price, but then also that might, because the tickets are less in price, people might have more money to spend on merchandising. Who cares, bro? Listen, we need to help the American people, right? We need, as Democrats and Republicans, to write down 5 major things right now. 5 major things, right? That all American people support and want. And I know for a fact that most American people would like prices to be low across the board. Most American people don't want trade wars. We don't want war in general, right? That's most American people. Most American people, most people across the world just want to take care of their families in peace, right? They want their children to have structure and to have education, and to you know, for their children to have, you know, foundation in their lives to support themselves. You know, we need to be more focused on the American people. We have way more important things. Listen, you know, the Democrats were more worried about bringing in immigrants and aiding them to the point where they forgot about that we have our own poverty levels in America. We need to reform how we take care of our poverty, our people in America, right? We need to reform on how we deal with there's just many of things, right? I didn't write notes. I'm just going off the top of my head. Hold on, let me go to Richard, because Richard's still in the chat. Shout out to Richard for staying in the chat. Shout out to you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, we got to that. Most of these were exactly, we did that one. Yes, he is deporting people who are legal as well. No due process, that can go horribly wrong. Listen, I'm with you on that, Richard. So let's take that topic matter, right? And let's say Corey took that topic matter. Let's speak about it, but let's not babble for hours about it. The important thing, Richard, is that we vote against it, right? That we vote against those things that that are illegal and wrong and unjust, right? So let's talk about what you said. Yes, but he's deporting people who are illegal as well. Okay, Corey, we need you to talk about those things, right? We need you to come up with a bill that will go up against Trump's executive order. And I'm not saying that that's, and I'm, I don't know exactly how those things work. I need some more research. Richard, I need your help on that one. Help me to figure out how those things, help me to learn how those things work, Richard. Thank you so much. Thank you for so much, Richard, for being in the chat and talking with me. But yeah, at the end of the day, Richard, like, look, it doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of time, right? When we could be formulating people around America to go up against deporting citizens of America, right? Like, I remember seeing on the news that although he wasn't illegal, he was from Venezuela, but he had no criminal background. And they didn't even send him back to Venezuela. They sent him to El Salvador. And now he's locked up in El Salvador, even though people are advocating like this dude does not have a criminal background, not only in America, but not even in Venezuela, right? We didn't go retrieve him. We should be advocating for things like that, like important things that no American citizen, right, gets deported, right? That be illegal, right? We should be formulating protests against some of these judges that are in support of Donald Trump's executive orders, right? We should be formulating the American people, right, to stand up or to combat. I say combat, not fight. Combat is the more proper term. To combat the things that we don't want. And right now, let me see, he put something new that can just snatch anybody will do. Listen, I agree with that. I agree with what you said, Richard. Also understand that, what is it? Trump did something else. Oh, the segregation thing, right? Where any federal contractor can segregate, right? No. That should not be allowed. We live in America, right? We have too many international people here. We have too many American citizens that come from different nationalities, right? Whether you're white, black, Indian, Chinese, if you're American, you're American. You did your just dues to become an American, dope, right? You should not be deported, right? But we need to combat the president. We need to combat him with strategy, right? Because that's how the Republicans got in office. They lost the first time, whether it be fair and square, or whether it be they cheated, right? That's up for debate. But what we need to be doing is figure out strategy to combat these executive orders, right? By going through the judicial branch, right? That's the branch that puts everything back into correction, right? I just, my thing is just like, look, Corey, if you ever watch this, I don't know if you ever would, but, we need you to do a run like you're running for president. We need you to travel around the United States. We need you to hold forums, town halls. We need you to put together legislation. Come to the brilliant minds of those that say, listen, deporting people is wrong. This is why. This is solution, right? If you have a problem with something, come with the solution and go that route. But just because you delayed a legislation process of voting on something, that's not the way. Richard, it's one thing to talk about it, but like we need to do action to it, right? And I need funding. I need funding to do what I'm saying that needs to be done, right? Because people, I know that if you watch this, you're gonna be like, well, what are you doing? I need funding to do some of the things that I want to do, right? I don't mind getting out here advocating for a lot of these things. I don't mind, you know what I mean? But, and I don't even need a lot of funding. A couple $100 a go a long way. You know what I mean? I got my own vehicle. You give me gas money, I'll travel around the US and I'll advocate. You know what I mean? I know where to go. I know who to advocate to. I know the American people that don't believe in a lot of the things that's going on, right? I know how to speak to them. I know how to get to their hearts and to get to their minds. This is why I want to be in politics. This is why I want to be a lawyer. A lot of people who are in politics are lawyers because they understand law and how that works, right? This is why I want to do these things, because I want to stand up for the American people. I want to come up with brilliant strategies that are actually going to work and work those strategies, right? I want to bring people into unification, right? Not that we'll always be unified, but that doesn't mean that we won't be unified on specific topics, like the ones that the great Richard Andrew Crosby is talking about. Shout out to you again, Richard. I appreciate you. Speaking of the El Salvador prisons, Richard, something about that doesn't sit right with me. Here it is that one of the most powerful gangs in the world, MS-13, submitted themselves, basically. El Salvador has been fighting this gang, one of the most powerful gangs, that is, for years, and all of a sudden, this new president is able to get all of them locked up? I don't think so. Something about that doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what it is, but something about it doesn't sit right with me, right? It doesn't sit right with me. Mind you, all those members that are in the El Salvador prisons are all unified for the most part, right? They're not against each other. So how do we know that they're not planning a strategy to overthrow that prison and then they'll be back on the streets again, right? We don't know. But what I'm saying is that when you come together with proper strategy to combat the things that you don't want in legislation, then that's when things get done. Not just talking about it. I can advocate, right? I can bring people together. But in the process of advocating and bringing people together, we have to have proper strategy, right? And it has to be carried out correctly, right? This is why the Republicans are in office now. After they lost, they came up with strategy, they worked the strategy, and now you see people in office that a lot of people are like, oh God, the Republicans, right? Hey, they worked their strategy. That's why they're in office. That's why, and now they're going to, they're really dragging us back to the old days, and we need to go forward. We need to go forward, right? The Democrats are too focused on wishy-washy things that don't matter, right? These gender woke ideologies, right? Hey, I'm not against those ideologies. Actually, I am. If some of them don't go into the word of God, you know what I mean? Some of them go against the word of God. Here it is. Some of these ideologies that the Democrats support, they're not supported by the word of God. And see, you had a lot of Christians who became Republicans. Not that all of them were Republicans, but you had a lot of Christians who became Republicans and supported Donald Trump, right? Because they want things to change. They did not like what was going on in the Biden administration. And even during the Biden administration, if people would have came together, right, and advocated properly and had the right strategies, like, here it is. You can contact the county, said you want to hold a protest. These sidewalks that you see, they're public property, right? You can surround things, right? Let's go to Malcolm X, the movie Malcolm X. I don't, Richard, if you're still here, I don't know if you've seen the movie Malcolm X, where I forgot what happened, but they were at the hospital, right? And Malcolm formulated the NOI, the Nation of Islam, to basically stand militarily without arms, to stand militarily outside of the hospital to protect one of their own. And here it is. It was so powerful, that movement of strategy. They didn't even use violence. It was just them showing up, right? Here it is, right? Fund me, American people. Fund me to go speak to these judges, to go speak to these lawyers. Hey, American people, let me be your lobbyist, right? Let me be a lobbyist for the American people, whether you're Democrat or Republican, as long as we're going down one path in unification towards a common goal that we all agree on. And see, a lot of us are in disagreement. We're in disarray with each other when it comes to a lot of the issues in the United States. And this is what I'm saying, Richard. I don't necessarily want to represent the Democrats. I don't necessarily want to represent the Republicans. But these rural areas that you talk about, Richard, shout out to Richard, because Richard, me and him, we're eye to eye. I'm in agreement with you, brother. I'm in agreement with you. We need to go talk to the people in the rural areas. We need to convince them, right? But we need to have proper strategy to show them, to also help convince them, like, this is where we need to go down the line. We need to go to the future. See, a lot of the American people, let me not say American people. Let me backtrack that. Let me retract that. A lot of the people that are in congressional power, right, at the different levels, right, they're not thinking about the children in the our generations down the line, and all the things that every time we do something, right, that it affects them down the future in the line. This is going to affect my child. It's going to affect your child. It's going to affect their children's children down the line, right? We need to work on strategy that implements things that encourage prosperity in America, not just financial prosperity, moral prosperity, right? Because a lot of things that me and Richard are conversing about are moral ethics, right? Is it right to deport people, right? Hold on one second, everybody. Uh-oh, somebody text me. Lord. You know, I want to say this. American people who are listening, and shout out to Richard if you're still listening. You know, I know that you might not agree with me. And to those who agree with me, you know, shout out to you. But the fact of the matter is that we're in such a disarray with each other, and it's unlike anything we've seen before. Actually, it is something we've seen before. We've seen this before in the old times, before Civil War. We've seen this before. We've seen this type of behaviors go on where there's such a divide between two parties, right, that we go to civil war. Now, before, it was righteous to go to civil war before, because we wanted to abolish slavery. Although there are, even though it might seem right, even though, see, this is what they call the good intentions, right, where they're not necessarily good. When good intentions are not necessarily good, because we don't properly see, and this is why scientists should be involved in some of these discussions, right? Because we need to look down the line and say, okay, here's the strategy to get a certain outcome, right? This is a strategy, certain outcome, right? But like down the line, how is this going to affect us down the line, right? How does this impede or progress us in progress, right, towards our future, right? There you go, right there. Like, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, you gotta understand, like, we got to start working together and having empathy with one another. You know, one thing I do agree with is that we might as well become one continent. It shouldn't be a Mexico, United States, Canada. We all travel between the nations. We're one continent, right? We make up borders. We literally draw them out on a piece of paper and we try to enforce them, right? We enforce them. Um, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of intercontinental, and I'm not sure if that's the right terminology. Somebody correct me in the chat. But there's a lot of intercontinental travel between Mexico, United States, and Canada. We're intertwined economically. We might as well become one continent and work uniformly, right? Because all the people from South America, right? They want South America, excuse me, uh, Mexico down into South America, right? That section, I forgot what it's called. Excuse my fogginess in the brain, but that section where Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, all of that, right? They want to live like Americans, right? They want the satisfaction of protection and to be able to progress and to have businesses and things of that nature, and to not have to succumb to you know, tyrannical forces, right? They don't want to succumb to tyrannical forces. Richard, as long as it's respectful, you can put whatever message you want to put, as long as it's respectful. Because I respect you, Richard. I like your opinion. We may not agree on everything, but I respect you for saying all the things that you said. You don't have to retract anything as long as it's respectful, okay? But you know, Richard, convince me, right? Get me on your side so that I can have the understanding of what your viewpoint is, right? That's what I'm saying. But yeah, man, we got to work as a unit, as a team. You know, the Bible says a house divided cannot stand. A house divided cannot stand. So how can we stand in America when we're so divided in our house, right? Richard said something important. Let's read what Richard said. When you govern for a variety of people, you have to govern for everyone, because everyone is not Christian, everyone is not Muslim or Catholic. If I could give you a sticker, even though you're not a child, if I could give you a star for saying that, you know, I'm in agreement with you on that. You know, when I was president of SGA at my college, although my main support went to the African American Student Union, I had to support all nations, right? And there was, you know, the college I went to was a microcosm of the world, so there were all the nations were at the college, and I supported all of them. I sat down with all of them. I prayed with Muslim. I prayed with Christian. You know what I mean? Because there has to be a balance. There has to be an understanding, right? You know, I just agree with what Richard said in the chat. Like, you know, you have to govern for everyone, right? And everyone wanted the illegals gone out of America, and I think that was the first thing that Trump did, right? He wrote these executive orders to get rid of illegals, right? People that came over here from another country. We'll just say from another country, even though it was mostly from Mexico and those southern countries, right? We had intrusion from Muslim people came through those borders. Chinese people, you know, different factions came through, different nations came through those borders, right? Which violated our sovereignty as America, right? Because we don't know you, right? We don't know who you are, what you believe in. Although you are posing as an American citizen, right? We don't really support the ideologies that you believe in, right? A lot of people come to America with their own ideologies. And I asked this question in an X space before, like, are people that are coming here from other countries that want to be American citizens, are they being educated on American history? Used to be you had to go through classes. Now, I know that they go through ESL to speak English, right? But used to be, you had to go through classes first to learn American history, to learn what America was founded on, to learn what Americans went through to build America, right? Used to be. But when I said this in the X space, like there were people that were saying like, no, they're not educating them anymore on American history. This is foundational. This is crucial, right? Because when you're educated on American history, it gives you a perspective that you didn't have before, so that you can have an understanding on why America is America. Hold on one second, everybody. Okay, because I just want to make sure. But shout out to Richard. I thoroughly agree with what you said in the chat. You know, I just feel like back to recycle back to what we were talking about, Cory Booker. Look, I support Cory. I like a lot of the things that he stands for, justice reform and legalization of cannabis and gun rights and things like that. But, you know, you just wasted our time, brother, to get a kudos from everybody. You know, they kudoed you. They applauded you for basically staying on stage, the record-breaking babble, right? The record-breaking babble. But what did it solve? Nothing. You might have prevented voting on something today, but tomorrow we're gonna vote on it. You know what I mean? And you know, it just was a waste of time. And that's the problem with American politics. A lot of the things that we do waste time, right? Instead of getting things done. I did write an executive order when I was student government SGA president, right? But I wrote an executive order to give power back to us, the government, right? Because all the power was in the administration's hand, because we did not know how to utilize our Constitution. And I had to, this is why I want to be a lawyer. This is why I want to be a politician, because I sat down and read the entire Constitution and changed it with an executive order. All powers invested in me as president, as SGA president, although it had to be approved by the administration, right? It had to still be approved by the administration, right? But, you know, the deans were so proud of me. Shout out to Richard. You're absolutely correct on that statement. You're absolutely correct. I'm just saying, you know, we might as well, we might as well be in, but you're right. Like, the way Trump is moving, he's causing us to be isolated. Okay, we're gonna beef with Canada. Okay, we're gonna beef with Mexico. Okay, we're gonna slightly push and tug on Putin. You know what I mean? We're gonna poke the bear. We're gonna anger Zelensky, even though Zelensky, you need to sit your ass down somewhere. Excuse my language, everybody. You know, I'm a child of God. Look at Brazil. They don't even use American. Listen, yo, Richard, let's do a cast together, bro. Whenever you want to, you know, join in the live. You know what I mean? Let's do something together, Richard. I like the way your mind is thinking, because BRICS was created to break American currency, to break the American people down. We have too much power throughout the globe. BRICS was created to financially destroy might be a strong word. Disrupt might be a better word. But BRICS was created for that, right? And it eventually, you know, there are many of countries that are getting behind BRICS. There are many of countries that are, you know, in support of BRICS, and BRICS is giving out grants and excuse me, grants. They're giving out loans to some of these countries, right? They're going into some of these countries, and they're working with them to do many of things, right? I don't even want to go too far into detail about that, but that should go to show you, like, look, how are all these countries getting in accord with each other, right? Meaning becoming one. They're getting in accord with each other just to come against America, right? Which America is becoming isolated, right? We can't fight so many battles. We can't fight the battles that we need to fight in America and then go outside of America and fight those battles. On top of that, we're not generating enough capital, right? Expense is king right now in America, right? We're not generating enough to like support all these different battles. You know, Jesus said this thing. He said, count the cost. If you're a king and you only have 10,000 soldiers, right? But you need to go up against, for whatever reason, you need to go up against another kingdom, right? Who has 30 to 40,000 soldiers, right? Jesus said, count the cost. He said, you better make peace with those other nations before they overrun you, right? Because they have more people than you and they're going to conquer you. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, the more that we're in this disillusion, the more that we're in disunification with each other, the more that you're going to see us get conquered as these United States. Hold on one second, everybody, because somebody's texting me. Oh, yeah. I like you, Richard. Shout out to my viewers, man. Shout out to my viewers. Hold on one second, fam. Okay, because I had to. These people are. I don't know why. I must be talking stuff up. Really, my bad. I dropped my phone, but I must be doing well because everybody's texting me right now while we're talking. Me and Richard and the rest of the family while we're talking. I must be doing good because people are texting me right now, right? And I'm like, you know, not that they're bad people, they're good people, you know, but it's the point of the distraction, right? And I'm talking something good right now. Here's the thing, everybody. Well, first, here's the thing. Richard Andrew Crosby says, why do you think Jesus Christ said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God, the Father who is in heaven? Go, Richard, go. You know, Richard today has gotten the most golden stars in class today. Shout out to Richard. And Richard is my elder. You know what I mean? So respectfully, shout out to you. Richard said, explain why Trump wanted to get rid of the Haitians that were over legal, but he want the white South Africans to come to the United States and give them reparations. You know, and we need to keep those Haitians in America. You want to know why? Because those Haitians are freaking tough, bro. Like, if we ever had an intrusion on our American grounds, meaning like some type of invasion or some type of war, man, them Haitians are gonna go to battle, bro. And they're gonna take out people. Not that I advocate taking people out, but what I'm saying is that them Haitians are tough, dog. You want those people on your side. Like, you know what I mean? You want those folks on your side, bro. You want them on your side. Now, we have too much space in America, right? There's too much space in America that we can't make space for folks. But there's a lot of space between Mexico, those southern nations under Mexico, Canada. You know, some people like to live in the cold. Not me. But some people do. But we got too much space that we can't diversify where people live at. Like, and this is what I keep saying. Like, dog, we're supposed to be going to Star Trek, Buzz Lightyear, Infinity, and beyond. In order to do that, we have to be united, not only as continentally united, but we have to be united throughout the globe to travel the stars, right? Because I'm telling you, we're definitely not alone in the universe, and there's other forces that would love to conquer this world, that have advanced technologies that look down on us like, look at these ants. You know what I mean? They're so divided. You know, the Bible tells us to use the wisdom of the ant and the bee. I've said this many times before, and people try to take that and run with these narratives like as if they created this. I didn't even create it. You know, I just bring it to the forefront. But like the God in heaven tells us to move like the ant and to move like the bee. We need to use the wisdom and the strategy of the ant and the bee. What does that mean, family? What do the ant... Now, I want you to do the research for yourself. I want you to YouTube ant colonies, bee colonies. And what do they do? Work together. You ain't never seen an ant colony in division, in separation of one another. You've never seen an ant colony in division, right? You've never seen a bee colony in division of one another, right? Granted, I will throw this out there. The Most High said, don't forget, they have a hive mind, right? So they there's one mind that moves the hive, right? Granted, right? We're different. We're humans, right? We have, the Most High has given us all sovereignty within ourselves, basically to make our own choices, right? Which is a good thing. However, he also says to use the wisdom of the ant and the bee, meaning that we need to come together and we need to put our petty differences aside. We actually need to do scientific experiments on some of our beliefs, right? We need to do scientific experiments on some of our beliefs to see if they actually work or not, right? Is some of these beliefs actually going to benefit us, right? That we believe in them, but let's do an analysis on how this actually is going to benefit us down the line. And that's what we're not doing, family. I gotta take out Trump. That's all we kept hearing at these protests. And I just was, shout out to everybody for watching the Doge live protests. Those views shot up all of a sudden. I'm almost at 400 views on that thing. But I'm not in support or dissupport of them. I'm just saying, I just happened to be walking past it. So I said, let me film it. But like, here's the thing, like, nothing got accomplished but the bashing of Trump and Elon. Nothing got accomplished. Well, you know what did get accomplished? I seen a lot of people's vehicles. They didn't actually damage them, but they were putting things on people's vehicles that drove Teslas. That's wrong. You know what I mean? Leave people's vehicles alone. I don't care if they drive a Tesla. That don't mean they support Elon. It means that they want an electric vehicle that looks trendy. Hold up. Let's go back to what Richard said. When the people go back and listen to this playback, make sure you look at the chat, because Richard said a whole bunch. I would love to do a podcast with you, bro. I would love to, elder, excuse me. I call on you, bro. Let me give you your proper respect, because you're at least 15 to 20 years older than me. Let me give you your proper respect, my elder, Richard Andrew Crosby, okay? He said, mind you, these people were a part of the apartheid elite. Because they know Andrew Crosby said, because they know he who does not know their history is subject to repeat it. And I had a dean who used to say, why are you living in the past and things like that? And I wasn't living in the past. I was trying to remember the past to prevent me going down the past in my future, right? And she hated that. She was like, you're like living in the past. I'm like, no. We used to disagree a lot, me and this particular dean. And I'm like, I'm not reliving the past. I'm trying to prevent myself from going down a path of reliving the past in my future. Shout out. If I could do a round of applause for Richard Crosby, shout out to you, brother. He said, you remember the movie Billy Jack, where he was filibustering every time a bill came to the floor that he was trying to stop. But Trump ran on staying out of the other country's business. Did he not? We should stay out of people's business in other countries. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We should stay out of people's business in other countries. unless they invite us to be in their business, right? See, Zelensky had invited us to be in the business. And because Biden was supporting Zelensky all this time, who Biden had some type of previous beef with Putin anyways, right? He had some type of animosity or some type of get back he wanted to get at Putin, right? That's possibly. And see, that's the thing. You drag American people into your personal beefs with other people, not only within this nation, but around the globe, right? It does not balance governance. I have a beef with somebody that I truly love and that I have forgiven, right? A cousin of mine. And whether you take my side or his, right? You know, when we had a falling out, I never tried to involve people into our business because that's our business. And I don't want people to have to pick and choose between or to get into a battle between who's right or wrong. And that's one of the top things, right? That is the problem with social media, right? Is that we get people to advocating for us, and it's really a personal beef that we have with somebody, or a personal issue that we have with somebody, instead of just working it out with that person. But anywho, we were unable to work it out. And how I operate is I just separate myself and move on. But he decided to advocate to the people and get them on his side, right? Whether he be right or wrong. I say that because, whether I think he's wrong or whether he thinks I'm wrong, we really need to toss this situation up to God and let God have a final resolution on it. But why invite American people or other people into business that really is a personal gripe that you have with somebody, not that we have with somebody? You know what I mean? But Zelensky got us involved, right? The American people have been getting involved. The American government has been getting in other countries' businesses for eons. That's why we have military bases across the world, right? So that we can control the globe, right? And be in their business. It's a fact that the CIA participated in destabilizing other countries and their governments. So the roosters are landing home on us, right? That's what we get for being involved. But I do agree with Trump. We should mind our business. He's only involved in certain businesses because, as far as continentally, because we've already been a part of people's business, whether invited or not. Thank you for Richard for agreeing with me. I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is we're in trouble in America. We can't be isolated, and creating all these tariffs to create a balance is not the way, right? You can still say no to these countries regardless, which is a word, irregardless is a word. Irregardless of the things that we don't agree on, we don't need to injure the American people financially. We don't need to bruise the American people financially because we have a disagreement with another country. There's other ways, there's other diplomacy actions that we can take. How about just sitting down and talking with them people? Just like how me and Mr. Crosby were talking about how we need to advocate to some of the rural areas, right? Advocate to some of the rural areas. Okay, well, let's get on our soapbox in these other countries and advocate, right? And talk to their people. Let's get translators. Let's get the things that we need to advocate towards their people to get them to see our perspective, right? The point is to get them to see the perspective so that we can move in accordance together, not in disunity. Anyways, I got another live I got to do. I need to take a quick break. I need to drink a little bit of water. I appreciate you, Richard Andrew Crosby. If anybody wants to donate towards me being a politician or going to law school or my petrol so that I can, do the work that I'm talking about so that I can put foot to action, you can always donate to my Chime account, $lifestyle child of God. Whatever contribution you want to make, I don't care if it's $1 or a penny. I don't care if it's $5 or 10. Whatever contribution you want to make, it helps, not only support my kid, but it helps me get to a point where I can fight for American people. I'm a freedom fighter, not only for Black Americans, but for Americans in general. $lifestyle child of God. You can make your donations to Chime, CHIME. I agree with you, Richard. I mean, the thing is, everybody wants to be America, right? The way that we popularize our media, the way that we do things, right? People want to live like Americans. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Dubai. Obviously, they have their own rule sets and everything that follow that they implement. But I mean, look at it. They kind of want to be like America, right? They kind of want to be like, for lack of a better word, this fallen state called Babylon. So, I mean, people want to be America, right? They want to live like America. They want democracy. They want freedom of speech. They want freedom of religion. They want freedom of who they want to marry, and those are the basis that America was founded on, right? People left England to come here so that they can have their religious freedoms and not to be taxed, right? They didn't want to be taxed. Not that they didn't mind paying a tax, right? Because those taxes go towards the gross of the benefit of the whole country. It was the fact that they had I forgot what it's called, but they still had a kingdom, right? And the only people that was getting rich and benefiting off of it was the king and the queen, right? And the royals, right? They were benefiting off of it, not American, not those citizens. So, America was founded on freedoms. And a lot of people in the world, the citizens of the globe, they want freedoms, right? They want the same freedoms. They want they although I follow the rules that God has given me, the commandments and statutes and principles God has given me, they want to live outside of those statutes and principles, right? That's why a lot of people come to America, right? Not only to make money, but they like how we live. They want to be able to live and consume in peace. And yes, to Richard's point, we're a consuming nation. We practically don't produce anything. So I don't even know how any of these jobs are still surviving in America. I mean, my prediction is you're going to see a lot of layoffs in every sector, because the more that we increase in technology, specifically AI generated technology, the less you're going to need people. The more that we have drones and the worker drones, right, that can replace American jobs, right? What do you need people for, right? But when you replace those jobs, you need to make things free, right? We should be, I'll do another podcast about this. I'll have to do another live. This is getting out of context. But anyways, somebody passed this on to Cory Booker. I'm not against you, Cory. I love you, Cory. I followed you. I would have, in my time in politics, people compared me to Barack Obama. You know what I mean? I was in office in SGA when Barack Obama got elected simultaneously. But I support Cory, you know what I mean? But I just feel like the thing that he's doing is exactly why the Democrats lost the election, because they're doing too much babbling and they're fighting for the wrong things instead of what the majority of the American people are looking for, which is financial freedom and to support their families and support their generations to come. Like I said, I'll never ask you to subscribe or like. If you like what I'm doing, cool. If you want to subscribe, thank you. But I'll never be like and subscribe. That's on you. That's on you. I'll be honest with you, like I do in most of my lives. I don't always like and I don't always subscribe to people's channels, but I might watch them regularly. You know what I'm saying? So Anyways, lifestyle here. Child of God. Peace.